Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to our special council meeting to discuss the draft 2024 budget and also to hold a closed session on staff matters as permitted under section 239 of the Municipal Act. I'll confirm that everyone is present on council, including Joan, who's attending virtually, as well as members of staff, our acting CAO, Dave Dawson, our clerk, Emily Cartledge, and today Nicole Blenheim is going to make a presentation, and Yolanda is acting as our assistant clerk. I'll start this meeting at 9:32. And we'll go to item 2, which is a territorial land acknowledgement. We respectively acknowledge that the township of Alma-Culdeman is located on the Mississaugan-Ashaninbenk territory and is the traditional territory of the Mississaugan-Ashaninbenk. The township of Alma-Culdeman respectively acknowledges that the Mississaugan Nation are the collective stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. Next, we'll move on to disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Joan?
Thank you, Mayor Lobo. Through you, Mayor Lobo, I'd like to declare pecuniary interest. It has to do with the agenda item number 6.1. It has to do with the library board budget, and the reason is for litigation that with library board. I would like to say I'm just taking this whole section, and anytime the library board is mentioned or anything, I'm just asking that you take that out of a motion to accept it and do the library board part separate, if I may, if that's not too much of a trouble.
Yep, we'll try to do that. You can remind us if we miss it, but Joan, because you'll be paying most attention to it, but we'll attempt to do that.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mayor Lobo. As I'm off site today, I would just like to mention to Madam Clerk that next week I will hand this document to her in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Moving on to item 5. Motion to approve the agenda. That the agenda for the special council budget and staff meeting held on March 5th, 2024 be approved. Could I get a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Ainsworth, seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried. Next, we have a presentation, the draft 2024 annual budget, and we're going to ask Nicole to present the draft budget as you have prepared. So if anytime you're ready, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'll bring up my presentation here in just a moment. I just wanted to give you an idea of what we're going to do today. So first thing, I'm going to go through my presentation. Then there's a couple things within my report that were updated yesterday. One is with regards to Lower Trent Conservation. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I did receive an invoice from them yesterday and have some correspondence with Lower Trent on that. And there is a budget impact to that. So we'll talk about that a little bit today. And then I'll be asking to move forward on the 2 remaining issue papers that we need resolutions from council on. So those are the items that we'll talk about a little bit after, but I'd like to go through where we're at now. I did do a presentation to council when we did the draft, and so this presentation is really an update to that. We'll show you where we are today once all the changes have been made. So just a moment here and we'll bring this up. So, as far as the budget timelines, I'm going to fast forward through this a little bit as we did go through what the process was that got us here today at our draft meeting. What I will do is go to the third page of the PowerPoint presentation, which talks about what we've done. So we met February 7th, 8th, 9th. We went over the first draft of the budget. The staff then went back after that meeting and as directed, brought back the budget on February 20th. Now, prior to doing that, there was also some closed meetings with regards to specific staffing individuals, so that those were done and closed. And on February 20th, council approved a change to the budget schedule to bring back the staffing and issue paper changes that had been discussed on the 20th. So that's how we ended up at March 5th today. Initially, we had scheduled that meeting for February the 26th. The changes made were given to the clerk on February 27th to be incorporated in this budget. And so you will find that within the package that you received in this agenda were the changes that were brought forward at that February 20th meeting. So where are we at now? So it's showing all that on there. Let's see if I can move this away. Okay. So this is the 2024 budget summary report, very similar to the one that you received during the draft. One thing that I had a discussion with the mayor on recently was that when looking at this and you see the column for revenues and expenses and the raised by taxation, I think just to clarify for anyone who might be having any questions or concerns on this, and I think we will probably revise this for next year for reporting purposes, is that the revenues that are showing there include any contributions from reserves. So any funds that are coming out of reserves to help fund the expenditures for 2024 are in that revenues column. And in that expense column is any contributions to reserves. So any funds going back into the reserves account. So what I would propose is that for next year, I'll actually create 2 more columns. So you will actually see the true revenues, expenses, and then you'll see contributions to and from reserves, and be able to see that a little clearer all in one sheet. One other thing to note here is that you'll see the progression over the last 5 years of the increase in the levy. One thing, this is a more picturesque view of what you just saw on the other screen. And as we've discussed many times, that Public Works is where the majority of our funds go to service our roads network. The next would be protective services. That includes things like the Police Services Board, and then fire and emergency measures. What you will notice a difference between this pie chart and the one during the draft is that governance and admin piece of the pie appears to be larger. And it is, however, again, this is based on overall expenditures, including contributions to reserves. So as I noted in my report and at the request of council at our last meeting, is that any changes that were made on February 20th were taken in aggregate, and a contribution was put back into the working capital reserve. So you will see that we, I believe it was 300 and 31,000 that we increased the contribution to working capital reserves with the changes from that last meeting. So that's what's driving that increase in that piece of the pie. So this is at request of this council last year, and I think this is great. We can see the same breakdown, but it's broken down between general operating expenses, capital, and payroll operating expenses. And you'll notice that I added a little section on the bottom this time around so that we could actually see the levy impact of each of those sections. And a couple of slideshow sheets from this one, you'll see a little bit more of a breakdown of those items that are colored, and I've used the same color coding on this sheet that you'll see on the page that's coming up, because I know one of the focuses has been on payroll operating expenses, and that levy impact is broken down between not just staffing changes, but also things like the cost of living increase, changes in benefits, and CPP changes. So there are some other impacts in there other than just staffing. Capital expenses, we also have to keep in mind that there is a CPI impact there. So year to year, there would be an increase in cost just due to that. So that's one thing I just wanted to bring forward there. Above the levy impact, the increase decrease showing there is the actual increase year over year or decrease. So this is what the breakdown looks like between the operations, personnel, and capital. I just want to note here that the capital chunk is truly the expenditures on capital. It does not include the contributions to reserves for capital purposes. They are showing in that operations piece. So truly there is a portion of what's sitting in that operations piece of the pie that is a direct relation to future capital purchases. And this is a slide that I didn't change from the draft, just talking about the fact that the consumer price index we had looked at October to October when we did our cost of living. I think it was actually a little bit lower by the end of the year. However, it ran between 3% and 3.5%. In October, it was 3.3% and 6.5% in 2022. The cost of living allowance on the wages was 4.8%. That was using the CPI of 3.3 and pulling out 1.5% of the banked cost of living increase, or sorry, consumer price index from the prior year. So this is the breakdown that I was talking about, and that it's color coded like the previous slide that you did see, so that you can see it kind of chunked together. So the blue items are to do with the change in payroll expenses. So as you can see, that 4.8% that we saw as an increase is broken down between staffing changes, cost of living allowance of 4.8%, the increase in benefits at renewal in October, as well as the additional tier that was added to the CPP. Obviously, the largest increase is the cost of living allowance. And just to clarify as well, that the staffing changes includes a few things. That's your step increases for staff. Anyone who isn't already at a step 5 within our grid would normally see at least one step change within a year. It would also include any band changes, additions of staff like the customer service person who has been approved, and any additions of students. So I'm not surprised to see that when you look at it as an increase year over year, it's about a 4.1% increase because our steps are set up such that they range usually between 4 to 5% change from one step to another. So that really does make sense. Operating really, when you see that negative amount, really it's staying status quo. The operating costs haven't really changed a whole lot. However, we need to be reminded that that operating number also includes changes in reserves, so it does skew that a little bit. And then the capital, which is in yellow, so the true increase in capital would be 4.1% because the CPI impact on that is 1.3. And I like that we're where we are with this. Our asset management plan does speak to seeing 2.7% increase in our levy for capital. So, you know, we're almost 1.5% over that, which judging from the state of some of the capital, I think this is a good move on our part to show that we're moving towards you know, updating and keeping our capital maintained and up to date. The gray line in there, that's the increase in revenue streams. Not surprisingly, you know, we only saw a 1% increase in that. Our revenues as a whole, we don't see a lot of change year to year on most of our revenues. In fact, in some cases, due to funding, you know, we've actually seen some decreases in funding from some of the other government bodies. So overall, we've maintained at the same levy increase before the growth, which is 6.7%. You'll see within my report that I have recommended, if at any point today there is any requests for any changes within this budget, my recommendation would be to adjust an offsetting amount to our reserves to maintain the levy where it is. So this is the impact on reserves to the changes that were made since the first draft. So the top section is what the reserves looked like when we brought the first draft forward. You will notice that the December 31st figures did change a bit. As you know, we haven't completed the 2023 year end. It's actually still to be audited. So there's still been adjustments happening. However, what I want to bring to your attention is that we've decreased the net impact on the overall reserves by a little over $505,000 versus what was brought forward in the draft. So that was something staff did hear from council, was that there was a concern about the overall impact to the reserves. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I just really wanted to note that initially there was a 0.15% levy impact due to donations and commitments to outside organizations. It is now at 0.09% since council has gone through and approved the amounts that you see here. So I think this is the important part that, you know, the taxpayers want to know is, you know, how does this impact me, what's going to happen with my property taxes. So this does amount to a 6.41% tax rate increase for the municipal portion of the property taxes. It equates to just under $38 per 100,000 of assessment for the residents. For the lower tier portion of taxes. So that's the municipal portion. Again, nothing has been brought forward yet from MPAC as far as dates at which there will be any kind of reassessment on properties. So that's still an unknown factor. The average assessment of a residential property is approximately $411,183, which equates to an estimated tax bill of $2,568.07 for township taxes. That's just under $155 tax increase, and that does not include the county or education rates. The education rates are remaining the same, and the county rates are estimated to change by less than 4.34%. Therefore, a residential taxpayer may see an estimated overall 4.78% increase, or $60.38 increase per 100,000 of assessment. Before I do my closing remarks, one thing I wanted to add that isn't in here, but was taken into consideration when doing my estimated tax calculations, is that as there has been an increased want for housing initiatives, we are expecting at some point for the province to mandate that the multi-res rates be at the same level as our regular residential. Multi-res was at 2 times, and last year the county did implement policy, and there was discussion with all of the municipal treasurers on this to start to move towards that, so we don't have a large impact when all of a sudden we move from a 2 to being the same as residential. Because what happens is when you start shifting that policy, it ends up hitting all the other residential ratepayers, because that's the biggest piece of the pie. So we're doing it over time. This year, the county is bringing forward out to bring that multi-res rate down to 1.6, so another 20%. So that is something that the treasurers have been supporting within for the municipalities in the county. So that has a very minimal impact within our township, only due to the fact that we don't have a lot of multi-residential properties. So I wanted to let you know that that is something that is being initiated over the next few years. However, the impact is very, very small within this municipality. I really just want to thank everyone who has contributed, both council, staff, the library and police boards, the committees, everybody really takes time to give their input within the budget process, and I think that's important. So what I'd like to do at this time, if that's okay, Mayor Local, is I'd like to bring up and talk a little bit about the invoice I received yesterday from Lower Trent. And when I got the invoice, I was a little bit confused at first, because when we normally in past would get the invoice from them, it would show the operating levy and the capital levy. I would go back to my budget. It would equal that same amount and I would be happy. I would sign it off and send it on and we would pay that quarterly throughout the year. However, as I know you're aware, there was a memorandum of understanding that was brought forward and was signed in January. And that memorandum of understanding is, from what I understand, is driving the other amounts on this invoice. So I'm just going to tell you what they are. There's 4 memorandum of understanding amounts on this invoice. And one is for category 2 risk management official for $4,965. The next is a source protection education amount for $1,134. And then category 3, there's a youth education amount for $4,001 and monitoring of $6,894. So it's a total of $16,994. So what I want to bring forward is that initially when Laura Trent made their presentation to us, they were bringing forward, I believe it was a 19% levy increase. I know Councillor Ainsworth went back and voiced council's concerns on that. And we were brought down to 13.2, I think, increase in the levy coming from Lower Trent. So these additional amounts, the 16,994, now brings us to a 27.4% increase over last year. So I am recommending in my report that we put this in, only because I can see that we have signed this memorandum of understanding. I know after discussion as well with our acting CAO is that our understanding was that these amounts in the memorandum of understanding were part of the overall levy. So I really just would like to bring it to council to if we're going to include it in the budget, then I would like to see a resolution for the offset to be put to reserves. And B, if it's council's wish to do something other than that, I think that needs to be brought forward.
Can you hold on for a second, Nicole? Dave, do you have a comment?
I'm going to ask Nicole a question. If you could please elaborate to council. We started off the conversation with Lower Trent Lakes with a 19% increase. And then through negotiations, Councillor Ainsworth being on their board, it was brought back at 13.3.
Correct.
Are we the only municipality that is paying for an MOU at this present time?
So through you, Mayor, the letter that was sent leads me to believe that, because in their letter, it breaks down the apportionment of the budget for levy purposes, and each of the townships is listed there. The cost of the adjusted category 2 and 3 programs on this letter only has Alnwick Haldimand. So whether they have only shown our apportionment for the category 2 and 3 items on this letter, that's not apparent to me. So it is possible that other municipalities have had them. However, they've shown everybody's apportionment for the levy purposes, but not for the category 2 and 3 items.
Thanks, Nicole. And I should have said to you, Mayor, if you could give me a couple of points on this, because I want council to have this information, because I think it's prudent to their decision. When we did not pay for an MOU agreement last year, would that be correct?
Through you, Mayor, yes, that is correct.
Okay, and now when we were looking at a 19% increase, and because we didn't pay for this in the past, we went to 13.3, but now with the added 17,000, what does that make our overall percentage increase over last year?
Through you, Mayor, it's 27.4.
Thank you.
Mike, do you have a comment?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. So we did kind of talk about this at category 2 and category 3. I think 2 was volunteer. And we still went with it in our conversations. And that category 2 and 3 is every municipality pays for that. So it is something that they're all talking about, because it was somewhere around 30% for some of them. So although it wasn't part of that 18 or 19% at the time, it was kind of in the background that it was still sitting there. And when it kind of came to light when we got the information from Trent Hills, that category 2 and category 3 really brought it up to about 30%. So taking it down to 13.2 didn't involve that category 2 and 3.
What?
So that was an extra add-on.
That was an extra. What about 1 and 4?
No, I think I'm not sure about the 1, because for the $4,950, or that was category 2, Nicole.
Yeah.
Through you, Mayor, if you don't mind, I can read this
Yeah,
one
please
portion
do.
of the letter. So it says, the 2024 budget identified a category 1 operations levy increase of $156,963. That's overall for all municipalities. The category 1 capital levy is unchanged at $98,105 per year. Combined, this represents an increase of 13.3%. The budget also outlines programs and services classified under category 2 and category 3, which are part of the memorandum of understanding between Alnwick Haldeman and Lower Trent Conservation. The final budget vote affected the delivery of program services under the stewardship program, category 3, although Lower Trent will continue to deliver the annual native plant sale and meet its commitments under existing external agency agreements, there will be no new private land stewardship initiatives undertaken in 2024. There will be no invoice issued under the memorandum of understanding for the 2024 stewardship program. We hope to reintroduce these programs for 2025.
And are they related to number 3 or number 4? Those,
So the risk management official is under category 2, source protection education is under category 2, youth education and monitoring are under category 3. The stewardship and outreach is under category 3, but we were not charged anything for that program.
right?
So can you tell me, Nicole, what is the percentage increase for number 2? And what is it for number 3? Because number 1 was 13.3.
Right. Well,
Or do they just lump 2 and 3 together?
no, they're shown here separately. However, I mean, they're 100% increase, I would think, because we weren't charged for those last year. If you're looking for a percentage of last year's overall levy, I can calculate that.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to figure the 27 point something percent, 13.3% is because of number 1. So there is 14% there. What's the split? Because this council, if you remember, voted to accept number 3. So we get what we asked for. There's no use in complaining about it now.
So category 2 is a 5% increase.
That's right.
And so the remainder is category 3.
Go ahead.
If I may, through you, Mayor, to Councillor Booth, I agree with the statement that you've said. Having sat through the presentation and received the information and in conversation with Nicole as our treasurer, it was not clear to us from the beginning that the MOU had a 17,000 price tag, because we considered that the presentation included the entire cost of our agreement with LTL.
Mike,
Through you, Mayor, but we did talk about these category 2 and 3s. It was a big part of the conversation, actually. So, although we didn't have the numbers that we have right now, and I'm wondering if in the past those numbers were hid in the total MOU. And we're only seeing it this year because they're breaking it down. Because it's from my experience with the board, it seems like it's been there. And I'm just wondering now if because it's separate, we actually see it differently.
it's still a
Yeah.
27.4% increase.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I believe we talked about that. And it was only the MOU for the 18.9% that we were talking about trying to get down. And Councillor Booth is right. We did accept those other two. Because one was volunteer and that was the one that we talked about maybe opting out of. But for this year, we didn't.
Any further, Joan, do you have any comments?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
This seems a bit of a surprise. And to come forward with a 27.4% increase, what do we do? Not pay it or opt out of an MOU? I don't know. I don't quite understand it all. And it seems a bit unfair that when the person with the CEO that was here, this didn't come up like this unless I missed something. So I don't know. I'm just uncomfortable how it sits. That's all I would say.
anybody else have any other comments? Seeing no, go ahead, Mary Catherine.
I mean, without seeing all of that information and having some time to look at it again, I hesitate to try and make any real comment. My recollection is similar to what you're saying, Councillor Ainsworth, that it was a pre-existing expense that we've paid in the past. And maybe it is showing up differently this year, but it wasn't presented as a new expense that we were taking.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cause I think category 1, Mayor, through you, the category 1 was 156,000, Nicole, somewhere around there. But I think our total budget was like 184,000 or something. And I think that's close to what it was last year. We look at those last numbers, right?
I think we're going up 27%. Are we not?
Mhm.
So through you, Mayor, last year's budget for the Lower Trent levy was 122,318. This year's budget, including the additional MOUs, will be 155,818.
Well, I guess we're, Mike, can we further investigate this?
Through you, Mayor. I don't know if it's gonna make any difference at this point. I can ask, right, with our next meeting, but at this point, I don't know if it's gonna make any difference because we've accepted the 13.2 and we did talk about the category 2 and 3 here at council. And we actually accepted that. Although we didn't have the numbers at the time.
Mhm.
Nice. My neighbor can bounce.
Oh, Joan was the mute.
Oh,
Joan, can you mute when you're not
Oh,
speaking? Mute your
Yeah,
computer.
well, sorry, you're hearing me. So I'll keep those to a minimum. I don't know. I think when they come forward with what their increase is going to be, we need to know what it is going to be instead of being piecemealed between these different categories, because this is huge. So I don't know. I just don't like how it's not that transparent, or maybe transparent's not the word to use, but we need to know what all the numbers are are in the budget. So that would be my only comment, and I will now unmute.
Mary Catherine?
I just don't feel comfortable addressing this without having an opportunity to look at what did come before us again. With council. I think we've done what we did, and I'm thinking that what we're hearing here and what we did aren't. But maybe they align exactly, and we need to go back and look.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, my recommendation would still be that we add this amount into the levy with an offset through the reserves. And my only recommendation, that when I was reading through the MOU, it says the amount of the fees apportioned to the municipality shall be provided annually at least 30 days before the meeting at which the budget is approved. And they're talking about their budget, not ours. What I would like to see is potentially an amendment to that to ensure that it's brought forward at the same time as the proposed levy amounts, so that we have the ability to budget at our end as well. So that would be my recommendation to council, is that we at least include it in our budget, and if council wants to pass a resolution at some point to, you know, or even send Councillor Ainsworth back with some sort of direction as far as hopefully getting some sort of correspondence earlier in our budget process, so that we can ensure that it's incorporated. Because truly this year we're looking at passing the budget in March, but my goal would always be to move that date to an earlier date if we can. I mean, we have some municipalities in the county passing their budgets by the end of December. So the earlier we can have these numbers, the better.
Thank you, Nicole. Well, I tend to agree with you. I think because we sent something out in January that the council passed, we're gonna have a hard time not paying that. So it would be my suggestion that we accept Nicole's recommendation, and that we ask Mike to go back there and get this confirmed, and then ask them to also provide their information earlier so we can do something about it. Dave?
To you, Mayor Logo, my question would be with respect to the resolution in council. My memory serves me, if it serves me correctly, council passed that we were paying the amount identified in the presentation. The MOU amount, even though it may have been in that presentation, to what some councillors have mentioned to go back and research, I believe it was the amount that was in the presentation originally that council approved. The 17,000 of the MOU was sent to us on February the 15th. Which is after the budget was put together with the information that we had.
Mike?
Through you, Mayor. So why don't we go back and look at the minutes, because I just think we're spinning our wheels a little bit here, because I know we talked about this category 2 and 3, and we knew it was an extra cost. As with all the other municipalities that are part of the Lower Trent. And so Lower Trent tries to get their budget done in December. They asked for an extension only because it was our township, and I believe Trent Hills was kind of pushing back. And Hastings County was pushing back a bit. Yeah.
I remember seeing something in that the Lower Trent sent a letter to the minister saying that they were supposed to have the MOUs done in before the end of November, I believe it was, have them all signed.
I think December.
Three groups, we were one of them that decided that we weren't doing that. She sent a letter asking them to delay it until January, until she got these memorandum of agreements signed, is what I recall.
Yeah, so I mean, if we want to go back and look at the minutes, I mean, we did have a good conversation about the category 2 and category 3 a couple of times. So we knew that was an extra add-on. I guess the only issue is we didn't really see the numbers. But come next year when the budget comes up, we'll be a lot more, asking more questions and seeing the numbers as they come through.
I think we're at a point there, do we?
Yeah.
At a point where do we stop going on with the budget? Or do we give as the treasurer's recommended that we put it in there and go back and do some more investigating? That's where we're at here. Go ahead, Greg.
I think we just go with what the treasurer is saying is we'll have to take it out of reserves. And I agree with Mike. This was discussed at council. We knew we were paying the 13.3 and we debated about number 2 and number 3, and this council voted to accept it. I remember the arguments because I was one that spoke against it, and I'm going to bring this up. I think what we do need to do this year is, Mike, is that we do need to find out exactly what 1, 2, and 3 is costing us. And maybe next year we look at to say, we're out of number 3. We're not going to pay that then. Or we're not paying number 2, if that's an option too, to seriously look at it. Because this is ridiculous. 27% increase. Public's going to scream for stuff like that. So we're stuck with what we have. Let's take it out of reserves, and then we're going to have to learn. And this year coming up, Mike, we're going to have to really keep track of them to say, what is it costing us for this MOU?
Thank you, Greg. Go ahead, Clerk.
So through you, Mayor Logal, so what I'm hearing in terms of the discussion is that council is looking for that the charges associated with the memorandum of understanding be paid from the 2024 reserves, and that staff be directed to work with Lower Trent Conservation Authority to get clarity on the terms and values associated with the MOU for 2025.
Is that what you said, Greg? No,
Yep.
Sure. Would you make that motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll
Seconded by Mike. We have a question from Mary Catherine.
Oh, I was just a comment that it's the December 12th meeting that presentation.
Any other further comments? Nicole?
It's just a wording thing, but I think you may want to amend that, because rather than it actually coming from reserves, that we reduce our contribution to working capital reserves to offset that.
You okay with that?
Yeah,
Greg?
yeah, that's fine.
Mike, you're okay?
Yep.
Any further discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried.
Excuse me, Mayor Lowell, I just wanted to mention as well, considering that we would like, in my opinion, we'd like to see what we're getting for our buck here. And I remember the different categories, particularly category 3, and I would like to have some visible information come from Lower Trent. What are they doing in our municipality, and what can we do to promote them? That'd be my only comment.
Thank you. Nicole, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, so are we moving forward then at this point, or?
Yes.
Okay, so the next items that I wanted to go to were, if you look at the issue paper listing, there are 2 items, one in admin and one in public works that are highlighted in yellow. Those are the updating staffing positions. So I'm just looking for resolutions from council.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Go ahead, Greg.
Because these 2 positions deal with current staff members, are we discussing this in open, or is this going to close?
Go ahead.
So through your, Mayor Local, these positions, we're strictly looking at the positions themselves. We are not looking at the people. So this is the organization's need for 2 new positions. And it's focusing on council's role to set policy and direction in regards to the organizational chart affiliated with these 2 new positions, not the people. So this open session. conversations, again, focusing strictly on the positions and not people.
Well, I think the first one, if I go by this is PWAMP, coordinator issue paper, is that correct? Which I believe is I don't want to say that. What is that actually?
That's the issue paper number 6 for Public Works. The update administrative assistant, Public Works asset management position to Public Works asset management coordinator.
Mayor Catherine?
Through you, Mayor Lowell, to our treasurer, would it be possible for council to approve the amount of money without approving the actual positions? I'm just thinking if we want to take some time and do our research and make a very informed decision about these positions, it may take us some time and discussion, but for your purposes, as wanting to get the budget in place to say, yes, we know that we're prepared to make some staffing improvements during 2024, can we put the money without the title?
Through you, Mayor, I mean, there's 2 ways to do that. There's one, just leaving it in that budget, or recommending that it be put into reserves for future consideration. So there's kind of 2 options there. You just leave it as it is, or you put it into reserves for that purpose, but absolutely that could be done.
Go ahead, Mayor Catherine.
Well, maybe I'm getting ahead of process here. Do you need a motion on the floor right now, or is it too late in discussion?
Well, it's open discussion, but if I don't hear anybody else, then I think your motion is appropriate. Go ahead, Greg.
Might as well take the first stab. So we're talking about the Public Works Department issue paper number 6.
Yes.
I will not be voting in favor of this, and I'll tell you why. This position, which was created a year or 2 ago, was supposed to be a administrative support to the manager of Public Works and asset management. And as we have found out, and I'd like a report on asset management, I believe we have some deadlines coming up in asset management, and I don't think anything's been done on asset management the last time I recall. And that person, or that position right now might be helping out because we don't have a Public Works manager, but when we get back to having our Public Works manager, this is supposed to be an assistant position and asset management, and I won't be voting in favor that this position be moved up. I don't see that there's a change in this position and responsibility at all, and I'm not willing to move this position up another band. And I guess one other question is, the way I'm reading it, this is saying it's the creation of a new position. So my stand on this one and the one that's coming after this is that if this is a new position, this should be posted to be transparent to the community. This is a new position that's created. It needs to be posted. This council a year or 2 ago said we wanted to be open and transparent, and we wanted to be showing the public everything. Creating a position and moving somebody into that position without posting it to the public is not right.
Any other comments? Mike?
To you, Mary, I'd just like a little bit of, some more feedback on these, because we're just on the 2, right? The 2 yellow ones that we're talking about here today, right?
We're talking about.
Because we were,
2024 PW06.
I don't know, maybe I'm just on the wrong page here, but hang on. Carry on. I'm okay, but I would like some background, I would like some feedback from our CAO on these positions and why.
Go ahead.
I-
You got a comment?
To you, Mayor Lowell. So this was a decision that took several months to analyze. It's in reflection of what staff are actually doing versus what these positions were created for and intended for. And really that is the basis of it, is that and unfortunately it doesn't stop here. We have too many staff doing well beyond their scope of practice or what they were intended to do. The position with respect to the roads department, there was 3 positions created when council was in lame duck. And we've just been trying to gather it up. I apologize. I'm a bit speechless about it all, to be honest with you. In conversation with the clerk, we do need to go through a reorganization structure. We need to clean up. We need to not only just the departments back in working in the departments that they're supposed to be, but also staff doing that. Councillor Booth, the answer with respect to the asset management, the reason why a lot of work is not done relates to the amount of work that has been placed on the position. So yeah, I can't really divulge too many details with respect to that. Another area that we have identified, this was an idea of the clerk, was to, and you will receive a report for this before a decision is made, but to move to coordinator meetings so that council can get a true feel of how our departments are functioning. I'll just say it this bluntly, you're going to lose staff.
Thank you, Dave. Joan, go ahead.
I guess I'm live here. Excuse me. I tend to agree with Councillor O'Neill because we are at the restructuring stage. We are doing cleanup. Decisions made a couple of years ago in lame duck situations have kind of added to this. So, I mean, if we put the money there, I wondered if that would expedite things as the process goes through, and then we're not like going like we did last year. We hired more people after the budget was done, and this way we're kind of looking forward and the money is there. So I would support Councillor O'Neill if she would like to make that motion in this particular area.
Thank you, Joan. Mary Catherine, you prepared to make a motion?
I would like to also, just to jump myself a little bit, I'd like to actually see the wording come back to me before we vote on it. If I could, but in general, I would like to see this amount of money allocated for staff enhancement upon the completion of the reorganization structure discussions. That's more or less what I'm trying to say.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mike.
Through you, Mayor. So I want to go back to Councillor Booth's comments, like, is there, you know,
We do have a motion on the floor. Yeah, just before we can
okay.
carry into
We
conversation. We
need a
need a
second
second.
first, and then we can make that. We get a seconder on the floor?
I would second that.
Thank you, Joan. Go ahead, Mike.
Through you, Mayor. So Councillor Booth's comments about being transparent and putting this out for a posting. You know, why don't we do that? Is it we don't have the time, or do we have people in place that can do this or have been doing this? You know, I think we need to answer those questions. Because I think in the past, not this council, but other councils have been appointing people too many times, and that's always been a bit of an issue. So that would be a question that I would like to answer too.
Can you answer that, Dave?
You restate your question?
It's just like, being transparent, and should we be posting this job?
Okay, I thought you were gonna ask him. I thought you were gonna ask him if this person that's doing the position is qualified to do that.
Well, that's part of it too. I mean,
Well, that would be a closed session matter, so we won't be,
Okay,
until
yeah.
we get into that.
but okay, so but should we be posting this job?
The decision that was brought before you was an analysis of where we are currently at today. And it was, removing a position and creating a new position to reflect a needs requirement. If we do not have the positions, then we will need to go external and hire that done. That would have to come back to you in a report because that will be costly. But we do have requirements that we do need to complete.
So
So-
we'd hire somebody plus. So it would be that salary plus the salary I already got, instead of moving somebody up.
Correct.
Mayor Lovell,
Yes,
I'll take my hand down if I can find the spot. I think that's essentially what the motion on the floor is saying. And I don't think that it's gonna take long to look at the needs and put things in place, and I think that will come through. I think we need to go step by step. If we accept this motion, that is having the caveat in there is to add the position when it's required and do the proper process that's in play, that needs to be in place to follow through.
thank you. Go ahead, Greg.
I guess speaking on this motion, so your motion, Mary Catherine, is including issue paper 3 and 4 together then? So,
Correct, because
so then we can speak on the human resources manager thing since this is dealing with this too. So I'm gonna start on this one now too. It's all part of that, what she's saying.
So we were currently just working with the issue paper for the public and, asset
Her
management
motion is
position.
saying to set aside money for both positions, are you saying? Or are you just talking about the public works one?
sorry, I guess the question goes to you too. I was thinking that the reorganization structure needs to happen before any position happens. So in my mind, I was addressing both.
So just get clarity from John that was reached.
Is that the way you understood it too, Joan?
Oh, I thought it would simplify things if we are dealing with the public works thing. And then we could move on to the other point, but I guess I put it to you, Madam Clerk and CAO, what is easier for you guys to sort out?
Go ahead.
Well, Emily, her motion is saying to put money aside for those for staffing positions. To me, that includes both of these issue papers that we're talking about.
Well,
Okay.
the only caveat I would add is what I stated before, and I could include the two positions. My question is to our staff, what would expedite it for them?
Emily's got a comment.
Okay, so in listening to the discussion, the original motion, because we were strictly dealing with the Public Works Asset Management Coordinator, was just dealing with that position and that issue paper. But Councillor Booth, if you want, we can do an amendment to include that the HR manager position be included in this.
No,
So it's just amending the original. motion.
That's up to her. If we're gonna have a separate discussion about the human resources manager and it's not included in that motion, then I'm fine. Because that's a whole other kettle of fish to discuss.
Go ahead, Mary Catherine.
That is kind of why I didn't say I want to see something in writing before me, because too often I think we do get lost in what are we actually talking about. But to be clear, I think the reorganization structure needs to be discussed before any and all positions, including both the public works one and human resources one that are in front of us.
So through the mayor, as a matter of procedure, I would recommend that we get a formal amending motion only because our mover and seconder of the original motion are at different understandings as to what the scope was. So my recommendation would be to get a motion to amend, which would be to include the HR manager position as part of the original motion. And then we'll go back and we can discuss both simultaneously, should that amending motion be carried.
And the two people that are, the mover was Councillor O'Neill and the seconder was Deputy Mayor Silver.
Correct for the original motion,
Yes.
but Councillor Booth has asked for an amendment, so
Yes.
he would be the mover of the amending motion. So we would need a seconder to the amending motion to then have that discussion. You would call the vote as
Okay.
to whether or not we want to include the HR in the original motion for conversation. Are we following? It's
Yep.
it's a bit of both and back and forth, but that is
Okay.
procedurally how we could handle that.
So Councillor Booth has a motion on the floor. We need a seconder for that first. Seconded by Councillor O'Neill. Further discussion? Councillor Ainsworth.
To you, Mayor. Just for this, I just don't know if it'd keep it cleaner if we just did one at a time. So we don't get bouncing back and forth.
Mayor Catherine.
Yep.
I actually take the exact opposite view on that. I feel like when we're looking at our organizational structure, we need to look at our organizational structure, and all these coming at me with 5 different things from 5 different departments. When our council hasn't done the work to say, what is our organizational structure? I find them difficult to deal with. And I would like to deal with the big picture, and then it should flow from there where all of these things fit in.
Thank you, Mayor Catherine. Any other comments?
I would concur with that to simplify it.
Thank you. Anybody else have any other comments? You want to read the motion?
Yeah.
Please.
So for clarity, the original motion was that the funds requested for the Public Works and Asset Management Coordinator position be approved, and that the position be reviewed as part of the organizational review and filled according to recruitment if approved as part of the org review. So was that the original? I'm looking at
Sorry.
Mary Catherine.
My intention was the latter part of what you read back to me. The first part was rather than reading that it be approved, that it be approved. Or the money be approved, the position not be approved is what I was trying to get in my motion.
Correct. So the first part is that the funds requested for the Public
Sorry,
Works
thank you.
Coordinator position be approved, and that the position be reviewed as part of the org review and filled according to recruitment if approved as part of the org review. So you're approving the funds for the position, but the position is included as part of the org review. So essentially holding off on recruitment until the org review.
Thank you.
So that's the original motion. The amending motion put forward by Councillor Booth and seconded by Councillor O'Neill was to include the HR manager's position in that original motion. So now we're talking about both the positions, both the issue papers. So we would need to get a vote on the amending motion
Yes.
to confirm council wants to include both. And then your final motion that you would then have to call a vote on would be the funds requested for the Public Works Asset Management Coordinator and the HR manager positions be approved, and that the positions be reviewed as part of the org review.
Everybody understand that? Go ahead, Mike.
To you, Mayor. I just find that, as council, we've been asking staff to get things under order and get things going. And I think this motion is just going to hinder that process and take longer to get things in place. And I think the issue paper in front of us are what we really need to deal with. We need this position for clarity and for just getting the public works in order. And I just don't see stalling that position. right? I think we should just either approve it or not approve it.
Mayor Logo, would it help if we had a timeline for decisions on these positions from our Chief Administrative Officer?
Go ahead, Dave.
Through your mayor Logo, so to council, I'd just like to say that I respect everybody's opinion on the matter. There's no question that we have issues. My understanding at the time coming in was that I had the ability to look at this and to make these suggestions. I understand and I see the need for an organizational review, and I think that it is smart practice. I think it's good debate. It's all work that needs to be done.
So we have the amending motion on the floor, Mayor Lobo,
Yes.
that the HR manager be included in the original motion. So you might want to consider calling a vote.
So
at
that
this
was
point.
moved by
If
Greg and
discussion
seconded by
is-
Councillor O'Neill. Further discussion? All in favor of amalgamating into one? That motion's carried. Second one was moved by Councillor O'Neill and seconded by Deputy Mayor Stover, and that was just got- what do I hit together? Why don't you tell me exactly what you said?
Just moving it around here. So the motion to be voted on now is following the amendment is that funds requested for the Public Works Asset Management Coordinator and HR Manager positions be approved, and that the positions be reviewed as part of the organizational review and filled according to recruitment practice if approved as part of the original review.
Thank you, and go ahead, Greg.
So now we can discuss both positions. I'd like to just counter what Councillor Ainsworth said. Don't mistake it, Mike, is these positions currently are filled right now. They're being done. Both of these requests are taking these same personnel and moving them up in the pay band. It's not stalling anything. By turning this down, it's turning down basically them moving up in the pay band. So I guess one question, maybe I'll go on to something and then I'll have to ask the CAO something, but just looking at these staffing requests, and I could be wrong here, but we have 10 staff members in this building right here. With this staffing request, we are going to have, out of those 10 people, 7 managers. 7 managers for 10 people here. This council is moving people up in pay bands to manager positions because, as you said, Mr. CAO, they are doing things that maybe wasn't originally in their position. This one about the Public Works is that person has been doing extra duties because the Public Works manager is off. That Public Works position needs to be put there and that person do their duties so that the person that's picking up this slack isn't doing it. So we have 10 people here, 7 of them are going to be managers in a pay band 7 or above, which is with benefits is over $123,000. So think of that. My next thing is going to be is that I guess when we're making this motion, I guess I have to ask you, Mr. CAO. So these 2 positions right now, are these people currently getting paid this new salary? Or are you asking permission for them to be paid?
This would be a closed matter, closed session about identifiable individuals. Again, just as a peaceful reminder and friendly reminder, council's under section 224 is to set policy and direction. We are dealing with the positions and the organizational need of these positions right now, not incumbents, not people. So we need to look right now. The matter of before council is to determine whether or not these positions are needed as it stands.
Okay, so then I'm going to ask council that this should be deferred to closed. There's a lot of discussion, there's salaries, there's implications of are people currently being paid this now, and it's coming to council just to rubber stamp something. So I think it has to go to closed.
Go ahead, Mary Catherine.
I believe we can vote on this motion without needing to have any discussions that require us to be enclosed. Either we want to go ahead and look at our reorganization structure first, or we don't.
Go ahead.
I would like to address Councillor Booth, just an answer to the one question about are things already getting done? I would strongly suggest to you that everybody is doing the best they can, given the current situation. I would suggest that some things would not have been looked after if people didn't step up. We did identify in the issue papers the risks associated with not having the positions. Again, I respect the thought process of a reorganization and the research that needs to be.
Thank you. Any other further questions or comments? I'll call the
John?
vote. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Through you, Mayor. I agree with Councillor Booth. We should move some of this into closed.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mayor Logal, I
Yeah.
concur with, Counselor, O'Neill to make the motion. And, and if we have to have another discussion in closed about this, then we're there. I think we're complicating it too much.
So my recommendation from process would be to deal with the motion that's on the floor, which is dealing strictly with approving the funds for the positions, and then the positions be included as part of the org review. If we want to bring forward a discussion about operations, in regards to staffing, that would be a closed session item on another agenda. But right now it'd be dealing with the budget matters, which is the positions, and then funding that way. Or sorry, and then following through with the org review.
Go ahead, Councillor Booth.
So speaking on that motion, if you vote and you pass this, basically you've passed this to say that both of these issue papers are going to go through.
Go ahead.
Through
And-
you, Mayor
I still
Logal.
have a question that I'd like to go to closed, which talks about whether or not these personnel are currently being paid at this position already. And this is just a rubber stamp, or so that can come in under closed, I guess. Would that come under closed then, Emily? Okay, thank you.
Nicole, you have a comment?
Just a comment that, Council Booth, just for clarification, I think the resolution that is on the table to be made is not approving these as they stand, but to put funds away to have that discussion so that the funds are there, if they're later approved during the
Further discussion, yes. Yep. Joan, you have,
That's how I understood it. And I'm wondering if, Madam Treasurer, your speaker is on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Thanks.
okay, anybody else have any further comments? I'm going to call a vote.
Sorry, a recorded vote, please. And if you could just read the motion out one more time, Emily, because I think in what you said is that these positions would be approved.
So the motion, so we've had a request for a recorded vote on a motion that reads that the funds requested for the Public Works Asset Management Coordinator and HR Manager positions be approved, and that the positions be reviewed as part of the organizational review and filled according to recruitment process if approved as part of the organization review.
Is that clear?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've had a recorded vote requested. So I'll call your members of council in alphabetical order. When I say your name, please answer yay or nay in regards to the motion. Councillor Ainsworth,
Yes.
Councillor Booth,
No.
Councillor O'Neill,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Stover,
Yes,
Mayor Logal.
Yes.
Motion is carried 4-1.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor Logo, would we be having a discussion enclosed on this topic
Do that?
today?
Today we called the special meeting through your Mayor Logal. The special meeting was to discuss the budget, as well as staffing matters already established under the agenda process. I would recommend that we bring this report or this discussion at a future meeting.
Thank you.
Is it possible, though, Emily, a motion can be made right now that we can, I've seen other council members make a motion and include it in the closed meeting today. So I'd like to make a motion that this, what we just discussed now, be included in this afternoon's closed meeting.
I would second that.
Okay, moved by Greg, seconded by Mike, that we continue the conversation regarding these two positions enclosed this afternoon. All in favor? Oh, go ahead.
I believe that would actually be counter to the argument we just passed, which was that we would discuss these positions as part of the reorganizational structure review.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll make a comment, only because there's a few questions that I want answered and closed about the positions. That can be answered this afternoon and doesn't have to wait until that I think are important to be answered now and not wait until another couple of weeks until we get a report back on the positions.
Here, Kath, you have your hand up?
I think I know where you're going here, Counselor Booth. If it was a very specific question, I might vote one way, but just a full out discussion, I'm not comfortable with. I think it goes counter to our, to the motion we just passed.
Any comments? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? The motion is carried. Joan, you had your hand up for approve?
My hand up in the wrong section. I was supporting what Councillor O'Neill said. But I'm good either way.
Well, no, you can't because you're the time.
I can't. That would be sitting on the proverbial fence.
Record vote. Yeah, I didn't see your arm there when you Mary or Joan, so we're gonna have a recorded vote. The clerk will lead us through that. Sorry.
Before we start that, then to your concern, then, so if it's just one question that I want to ask, are you okay with that?
I am comfortable with one question coming forward. I am not comfortable with an open discussion, and I think we need the clerk to help us with this.
Okay, so we've had a recorded vote called as to whether or not to go into closed session on the closed session agenda to include further discussions on both the AMP and the HR positions. Same process as before. I'll call your names alphabetically and please answer yay or nay in favor of the motion. Councillor Ainsworth,
Yes.
Councillor Booth, Councillor O'Neill,
No.
Councillor or Deputy Mayor Stover,
Yes.
and Mayor Logal.
No.
Motion is carried 3-2.
Okay. Can I read the full motion then? Have we all done with that? I think we're all done. Unless you have anything else to present through your budget?
Think I covered anything.
Okay, Mary Catherine?
Sorry, Mayor Logal,
Just a sec, Joan, I got Mary Catherine and then
I
you,
didn't hear what Nicole said. I'm sorry.
go ahead, Nicole.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, I'll make sure I'm closer to the microphone. So what I had said was that I think that we
we have covered everything unless council has any further questions with regards to my report. I think we can move forward with the passing of the levy increase.
Thank you, Mary Catherine.
I don't want this to be an impact on the levy increase, but it came up and we are at the Recreation, Culture and Community Development meeting the other night. And there is going to be a delegation from the committee come forward, but the general gist of it is that a multi-million-dollar project requires more than $10,000 to complete the
This is-
necessary studies.
This has
So-
nothing to do with the budget.
Sorry, we have a budget line in for $10,000 right now, and I'm arguing that that number needs to be much higher. I know there is money in reserves, so it wouldn't change our levy. So I'm not sure if it needs addressed today, but it is a line of concern.
I expect that, I'm aware of some, a project that we've looked at for a price. However, I don't think, the rest of council would be able to comment on that. So I would just leave it the way it is for now. Go ahead, Mary Catherine.
My concern is that that would limit us and not allow us to do, we've said we want to be the council that acts on this file, and we need more money in that line to actually act on it.
Go ahead.
So through you, Mayor Logal, and I'll defer to our treasurer in a moment, but it might be more prudent at this time to look at the budget as it currently stands with the information that has been presented to council. And should any future funding requests come forward from any committees, they be dealt with at that time. As opposed to trying to make a decision on information that we don't have before you today. And I defer to our treasurer on that.
Mayor, that basically what I was going to say is that, what I would recommend is that if we go out to get, a consultant or anything like that, or we're having to go out for a closer, once we know what that amount is, and the amounts over and above for the, approval of, council, because from reserves, there is a little over $88,000 in the memorial arena.
Thank you. Go ahead, Greg.
So I guess my concern, or just clarification, so if it was more, then we could have access to the 88,000 that could be used for studies or something? That's what you're saying, because it's for future growth, right? Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor Logal, I just didn't hear the last part of what Nicole said. Sorry, Nicole.
Mayor, so absolutely there's a little over $88,000 in the Alderman Memorial Arena Reserve could definitely be used towards consulting costs for any study for that.
And again, through your Mayor Logal, there wouldn't be any issues getting to that money, because I mean, 10,000 is not going to do what we need to do. So thanks for that clarification.
Any other comments? Mike, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. So I still have an issue with the library budget. And I think we need a full review of that. I don't like it that we would just be okaying that budget and not trying to improve the relationship and the structure of that library board. So because of the issues that we've had here in the last little while, and you know, maybe through the municipal act, if we have some kind of an avenue where council can have more say of what goes on at the library and what the board and the money that's being spent there. I just don't want to see us just handing off the money, and then again, we're going through another year where we don't see that organization moving closer to council and maybe improving.
Thank you. You have a comment on that?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we, if we're going to okay the budget for the library, that we put together, we have a full review of the library.
Anybody else? Greg, you want to comment? Well, should get a seconder first. Can I get a seconder for that motion? Guess Joan can't vote, so.
I
Um,
guess I'll guess I'll second it to bring it to the floor for discussion.
Thank you.
Hmm.
You have a comment, Greg?
I guess my question to Council Ainsworth would be, what do you mean by a review?
Well, we've had many conversations, is the library board doing everything that it can do for the township? What are they gonna do to increase their numbers? Do we need 3 libraries? That kind of stuff, and that council should have more of a say how the libraries run. We shouldn't be able, I know they have their own act, but there should be an avenue, and we should investigate that, where we should maybe have, like, as a partner to what's going on.
Mayor Catherine?
I have a couple of comments. The first is the Library Act is very clear about who makes decisions about the library. Having said that, it is delivering a service on our part, and I know that they have already, and Councillor Booth may want to speak to this a little bit more, but they have a subcommittee looking at a memorandum of understanding, and I think that's a better place to address what you are hoping to discuss, is through that memorandum of understanding, or some sort of an agreement between the two parties saying, well, yeah, we're giving you money. Yes, you're giving us services. But in fairness to the library board, they have been very diligent in making sure they're doing their semi-annual reports to us. So they have sat in front of us 3 times since we came to council.
Any other comment? Go ahead, Mike.
Through you, Mayor. No, I don't agree with that. I think that the library board's been able to do just what they want to do, and we don't have any say. We're spending 300 and some odd $1,000 in a budget for them, and we don't have a say how they spend it. And it's been spent ridiculously. They've had some issues there that could have been taken care of, and it wasn't. And it's costing the taxpayers a lot of money.
Thank you. Greg, comment?
I guess I would agree with what Mary Catherine said. The Library Board Act is very specific that they come to us and they ask for the money and they have full control of it. I think they would be open to the idea that we can discuss some of these things that you're looking at, Mike. For example, whether we need 3 libraries or 2 or 1 or whatever, or things like that, which I'm sure they're open to. And I agree with Mary Catherine, that would probably come under the memorandum of understanding, right? But I think it's kind of late in the game now, when budget's almost all done and everything, to say that we want to halt it and we want to take a look at their budget and everything. Maybe like we're doing with the LTC, we look at it to say we want to get more involved and talk to you about where exactly, your initiatives are. And let's talk about, like you said, about the 3 locations or whatever. I'm sure that, they're going to be up for discussion if council wants to discuss it. I think holding back their budget at this time is really too late.
Mayor Catherine?
I agree, but I would caution Councillor Booth that we're not talking to them about operations. We are talking to them about service levels.
Okay, we got to move in a second. Go ahead, Mike.
Through you, Mayor. So I just want to agree with Councillor Booth, is that if we okay the budget, we need to put some stipulations in there how we move forward with a partnership with them.
That would be outside, I believe that would be outside the scope of council's role at this point, would be to put stipulations on a contract already in existence without having the full contract in front of us. So my understanding of the original motion, Councillor Ainsworth, was that staff were to conduct a review of the library board contract. And based on conversations from what I'm hearing and the debate, you could add on to that. So that the review of the library board contract before the 2025 budget process.
Yes.
That's what you're.
Yep,
Are you
that
okay
will
with that, Greg? Thank you. Mary Catherine?
My comment is more on process. I think you've got something that's worthwhile investigating in much more depth and not being brought forward as an on-the-fly motion here, but one that you've really taken some time to bring back to us fleshed out more fully.
Go ahead, Greg.
And I would agree with that too. I would vote this down, but Councillor Ainsworth, I would be open to another motion, maybe saying that council, I don't know whether you could have a meeting with some members of council and the library board or something as a sort of a committee on the side to say, let's look at some of these MOU things or something on the side so that we can further discuss these. I'd be willing to do something like that then, and some of these issues that you've talked about could come up then.
See you guys. Anything there you want to bring forward?
So just in regards to your concern there, Councillor Booth. So when we move into the coordinator meetings process, so that report will be coming forward in a next week, hopefully. That would be one of the items that we would discuss at that sort of level and those next steps in terms of what this review of the contract. So that would be sort of that prime topic of conversation at those meetings. But I digress from your discussion.
If I may, Mayor, just to bring to your attention that Deputy Mayor Stover did leave the meeting for this discussion. So
Thank you. Okay, anybody else have any comments? Okay, I'm gonna call a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried or not carried? Don't even come back.
Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
So do we have another motion on the floor what Greg was talking about?
Well, I did make a motion to talk about, but I think that we discussed. Is that involved with council or is that more staff?
So the coordinators meetings would be staff and council discussing there. So.
But would that open up like the MOU, like looking at ways to work with the library and
I would say probably the staff and council, when they have their committee meetings, are gonna discuss that. If they have a recommendation, they'll bring it to council for adoption.
And that would be an operational review. So review of contracts would fall within staff's purview for.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna read the motion. If Joan's here, I guess if she's not, then there she is. No, we haven't called the motion yet. Okay.
Yes, so through Mayor Lorgo, so we did vote on the library board contract review, so that was defeated.
Yes.
So we now have Deputy Mayor Stover back in the meeting.
Yes, and I was gonna read the resolution from staff regarding the final 2024 budget papers. And that's where we are. Thank you. Okay, so the resolution as prepared says that the council of the township of Alma-Culdeman received the 2024 final draft budget papers, and further, the council approve a net levy increase after growth of 6.7% for a total levy increase of 8.52 for 2024, and further that a bylaw be brought forward for consideration to adopt the 2024 budget. Can I get a mover and a second? Moved by Councillor Ainsworth. Second by Councillor O'Neill. Any further discussion? Councillor Booth?
Yeah, can I ask for a recorded vote, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor Logo, because I was out of the meeting, may I just ask for clarification?
Yes,
Usually when it's a public or a council meeting, it's not going in close. I choose to sit back. And that wasn't the option I had this time. So I just needed a little bit of clarification on that. I don't know, I just need a little bit of a piece here. So the vote will be as it stands. Or are you going to split it take the library out of it? So I can vote on one portion of it.
she's saying. The way I understand it, she's saying that she doesn't want to vote as part of the library in there. So does that?
I don't want to put myself in a conflict position. So that's my concern.
Yeah, go ahead.
Through the mayor. So the levy impact that the library would have is only 0.2%. So, the overall budget, and like, much of the, I think, we're a bit better for.
Excuse me, Mayor Logo, I hate to be difficult, Nicole, but you're kind of breaking in and out. I'm only catching about every third word. I apologize. I think it's sorry to get you to repeat all that.
We've got a bad battery.
Oh, was that what the issue was?
Throw that thing out.
Through you, Mayor. So what I was saying is that we could pass the overall levy for the library separately. The overall impact is only 0.2%. So
Thank you. I think you've asked us a question, Joan. We don't know the answer for sure or not. So staff has asked that we take a 10-minute break and they're going to investigate and we'll come back in 10 minutes. So if I get a mover and a second to take a 10-minute break. Moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. All in favor? Motion's carried. We're going to take a 10-minute break and we'll be back at 11:25.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back in. Joan, you got us?
I gotcha.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder to go back to regular special
I'll-
meeting?
I'll
Moved
move.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Silver and seconded by Councillor Booth. All in favor? Motion's carried. Joan, staff have looked at this and we have an answer for you. So here, I'm gonna let Nicole take it over and she'll be able to help us with that. Do you have a comment, Mary Catherine?
Sorry. Sorry, Mayor Largle, who moved and seconded the return from recess?
Joan and Rick. And everybody's in favor. Mary Catherine, you have a comment?
I believe there's a motion on the floor that I seconded from Councillor Ainsworth. So do we need to withdraw that motion before we go on to the next?
So we'll, our treasurer is just going to speak to the discussions that we had in terms of next steps.
Through you, Mayor. So the municipal clerk and I have,
Can you hear Joan?
can you hear me?
Yes, yep, I can thank, I love new batteries. I feel I don't know, I feel good that it was just the batteries and not my ears.
So we did discuss the recommendation or the resolution that has been put forward, and our recommendation to council is that the recommendation stay, that the resolution be read as is, and that sorry, I'm just scratching at some notes here. There, it does create some issues because the budget is considered as a whole when we go through to do this sort of approval. So at that point, the Deputy Mayor Stover would have to decide whether she felt she had a conflict of interest or not, and decide whether she wanted to remove herself from that resolution. But that would be the recommendation of staff, is to leave that recommendation intact. I think it would open us up to potentially having to go through every department again and approving each separately.
So that instead of approving one budget, we approving 10 or 12 of them. Okay,
Mayor Logal, could I just add before I would vote on that I would have to check in with the Office of the Integrity Commissioner.
okay.
I just don't want to put myself in a conflict. I can send an email off. Usually they do respond fairly quickly.
Cool. I'm sorry. Emily?
So the motion on the floor for council to decide at the moment is the one that we discussed in relation to approving the budget as a whole. So if Deputy Mayor Stover, you would like to defer this motion until you get a verdict, that is a motion that you could put forward for council to consider. And it would be voted on at that time, whether or not to defer. If it was carried, then we would defer the budget to a future meeting, the final decision to a future meeting. If the motion to defer was defeated, then the motion would stand and you would have to make a decision.
I think that's fair to me. And I would do my email.
Oh, the last one we had on was Mary Catherine and Mike. Is that correct? Which was to consider whether Joan should be involved or not. Is that basically it?
So the motion on the floor was to approve the budget as a whole. Deputy Mayor Stover has put forward a motion to defer the approval of the budget until a future meeting. So that's a mover that would require a seconder.
Mayor Logal, I'm trying not to be difficult here. Could you allow me 10 minutes to talk to the Integrity Commissioner's office?
Yeah, we can take a 10-minute recess. Here, Catherine?
Since we just had a recess, would it be possible to move, item 6 and 7 till after item 8?
Moving to those. Public space. Can we do that?
So the agenda was approved in the order as presented, so I would recommend that we just keep it at hand. Excuse me. So the option right now is to go into a motion to recess for 10 minutes. To allow Deputy Mayor to confer. So that would be, again, that's on the floor, not quite on the floor, sorry, you've got it moved. You would need to get a seconder.
Does anybody want to second that? We take a 10-minute break? No, second it. Here, Deputy Mayor, correct? Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Go ahead, Joan.
Okay, thank you. I'll just get my number here, and so you're just taking a 10-minute break, are you?
Yes,
Thank you. May have to chime back in here if I lose connection. Thank you.
okay, Joan's coming in. Oh, there she is. Hi, Joan. Can I
Hello.
get a, hi, can I get a motion to return back to regular minutes? Moved by Councillor O'Neill and seconded by Councillor Ainsworth. All in favor? Motion's carried. Joan, do you have a comment?
I do have a comment. I was able to reach the Office of the Integrity Commissioner. He is in the process of sending an email, just so we get it straight, and I will forward it on to you, Mayor Logal, and to the clerk and to our Chief Administrative Officer.
Okay,
And he was working on it right at the moment, so I don't expect it to be too long.
council, do you want to wait for, how long do you think it'll be, 10 minutes?
Could be less now. Just check my email here. I don't see it yet.
I'll ask council, do you want to wait for another 10 minutes or you want to call the resolution as presented? Go ahead, Mike.
I believe Councillor Booth is muted. I can't hear.
Is your mic on?
I said, can the deputy mayor give us any insight on the conversation, whether she can vote or not?
That is why I'm waiting. And there was an avenue that he was looking at, so I think as a courtesy to me, that we should take however long it takes. He does know that it was within 10 minutes, so that's all I can say. He's busy writing.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mayor, so in light of that, why don't we just break for lunch?
That makes sense to me. Anybody want to second that? Seconded by Councillor O'Neill. I guess the only comment, I have to leave this afternoon at 3 o'clock, so or actually 2:30 because I got a meeting at 3. So I'll just have to keep that in mind. So can we take a 20-minute break?
And I will let you know as soon as the email comes in.
And we'll return at 20 after 12. All in favor? Carry. Okay, Joan,
Thank you.
okay, we took a recess for lunch. We're going back to, special counsel. Can I get a mover and a seconder to go back into business? Moved by
I'll move.
Ainsworth, seconded by Mary Catherine. All in favor? Motion's carried. Joan, we've taken a couple recesses. You're gonna fill us in for some information. Can you fill us into what the Integrity Commissioner said?
I can certainly do that. Let me just bring it up here. And Deputy Mayor Stover, this is further to our telephone call just now. I understand that you have declared an interest in the municipal budget insofar as it relates to the library board line item on the basis of the litigation you are engaged in with the board. I would think that the vote on the budget could therefore be in two parts. Number one, on the question of the library board, which you would not vote on. Number two, on the balance of the budget, which you may vote on. So it would be a two-part vote. Would there not then be a separate vote on the levy? You may participate in that vote. The levy being an administrative act to fund the budget that has already been adopted. And then he finishes, trusting this is of assistance. Is that clarification enough, Mayor Lobo?
I'm gonna ask our clerk to, comment, please.
Through you, Mayor Logal. So that is an option to go forward. As the treasurer did mention earlier, though, in order to separate them out based on the information now would require time in order to break them out to allow for that separate vote. So as a matter of procedure, if that is what you would like to have council consider, you could put a motion to postpone the on the floor. So postpone the vote on the resolution that's been moved and seconded, and have council vote on that with the, if you get a seconder, have council vote on that to determine how to proceed from here.
Thank you. So I would put that motion forward that council vote on the budget.
Just hold on. Nicole has a comment.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. I can't see Nicole.
Through you, Mayor. My only additional comment to that would be, what if we were to just approve all the other department budgets in whole, excluding the library, and then just do the library rather than doing all the other individual department budgets?
I believe that's what the Office of the Integrity is suggesting, and that would certainly expedite the vote.
So again, that could be done. However, you would need to pull forward and council would need to know what exactly it is they're voting on in terms of numbers and procedure, which is why when that motion to defer is so that staff can have the appropriate numbers at the appropriate sections. And also it would affect the bylaw set up under 6.1 as well. Would have to be taken a look at in order to suss them out and separate them.
Thank you. I can only, when it gets down to the sharpening the pencils and putting it down to paper, I would like the expertise of staff to do that. I would like to put a motion forward that the budget be approved in two parts. One with, without the library board, which would be separate. The rest of the budget I would vote on, and then I would proceed to the vote on the levy.
You know what? It's been moved. Does anybody want to second that? Second by Mike. Hey, Scott, go ahead, Mike.
I would say that we should maybe, if we're going to do this, that it should be without prejudice or precedence.
Okay.
So we don't have to do it anywhere else.
Thank you. Other comments? Nobody else any comments? Okay, oh, go ahead.
So this means what? We're voting on just the everything except for the library, or does this mean, Nicole, you have to take it back to give us the exact numbers? So it's being deferred.
Through you, Mayor, I think we're deferring it.
So that's a deferred the whole thing. Is that what I understand? That's not what the motion was.
No, I don't think so.
So the motion was to defer approval of the budget so that it could then be broken out into two parts. So that there'd be the departmental aspect and then the library aspect, because that will require us to then revise the bylaw as well, so that it would be in two separate pieces.
Further comments? All in favor?
For clarity, sorry, Mayor, for clarity of the motion, did you want to set a date as well for it to come back to, as opposed to an open-ended?
I guess I'd have to ask a couple questions first. So we'll come back to it at a future time. And what happens to the library portion? Do we sit again? Or is the deputy mayor just saying, I don't vote for them? I don't vote on it?
So that, through you, Mayor Logal, that would be up to the deputy mayor at that point to determine if and when she votes based on conflict of interest. So the motion to defer is simply just delaying the approval of the budget to a later date as it's, and then again, so it's two-part motion. One is to delay approval of the budget. The second part is to break it out so that it's everything and then the library.
Clear?
And then, if I may, then it would proceed to voting on the levy.
Yes.
And that's just the process.
Thank
ahead.
you.
Mayor, could I recommend that we bring it back at the regular council meeting
Yeah, as soon as possible.
on the 12th?
Regular council meeting on the 12th. Further comments?
Yeah.
All in favor? Motion's carried.
Was there oh, thank you. I just didn't note the seconder.
Seconder was Councillor Ainsworth.
Thank you, Councillor Ainsworth.
So that concludes our discussion on item 6, and we defer item 7. Well, we defer the vote, 6 and 7. So we'll go into, next we're going into closed. I get a motion to move into closed session. Moved by Councillor Ainsworth,
I'll move.
seconded by Councillor or Deputy Mayor Stolberg. All in favor? Joan, can you confirm that there's nobody else in the room with you?
I can. I'm here in the house all by myself.
Just to give a moment so that we can lock the meeting and move our.